Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald and Cole Carmody. Today, as we're going to discuss a little football with our questions from Wabash Station. If you're not familiar with the podcast, this is the original one, although we just split it into a bunch of smaller ones. Instead of doing one long one a week, we're going to do groups of smaller ones on topics that we can kind of zero in and focus. And all the questions come from our VIP customers at Wabash Station at GoPowercat.com. If you want to be in on the action, make sure you're subscribing. Head on over to GoPowercat.com and take care of that. Cole, we're going to do a little football, but it's not football season, so the questions are kind of a little bit all over the place, and we'll hit it out. We can talk a little bit more because we got rid of Gilbert. He's always trouble. We just get rid of him. Let's get it going now with my favorite name on the entire website, maybe in the world. This one's from Infected Testicle. He still hasn't seen a doctor. Does Will Howard's playoff success at Ohio State help the K-State football program? You know, I did that long video on Will and Deep Purple style, and I got to get to work on my Avery one here. But I never even thought about that. I just want to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Does it help K-State?
I don't think it hurts K-State.
No, it doesn't hurt.
I mean, it'd be one thing if it was, like a young Will Howard who struggled at Kansas State and then transferred to Ohio State and turned out to be a star. That would probably hurt K-State's football program. But, I think the fact that Will talks so positively about K-State, there's something to be said for that. And I mean, he's made it no secret, like Kansas State benefited from Will Howard being at Ohio State because they got Gabe Powers and the outside linebacker from Ohio State in the transfer portal. And so I don't know if that was the reason why Gabe Powers came to Kansas State is because he talked to Will Howard. I'm sure that, it helped. So I guess you could say that Will Howard has been helping Kansas State a little bit. But as far as Will Howard's playoff success, I don't necessarily think so. I think it has more so to do with Will, the person, and how he developed at Kansas State. Like, K-State's changed Will Howard. Fitz, I went back and looked at a Fighting Never Fighting that I did with Will Howard prior to the 2023 season. And it was fascinating because he sat there and he said, I want to win the Heisman and I want to win the national championship. And obviously he was talking about being at Kansas State. But the fact that he had those personal goals, I think, really is what drove him to Ohio State and not to the NFL. And I mean, that's a long way of saying no, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Again, I don't think it hurts K-State, but I definitely think it's more neutral than anything else.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of this. This is the best question I've ever received from a testicle. Boy, I've gotten a lot. Mm-hmm. It's interesting when you think of it from this perspective. Skylar Thompson's in the NFL. Someone just signed him. I just saw Steelers. Oh, that's right.
Good thing we didn't
Ryan
bring
Gilbert about that.
Yeah.
Adrian Martinez clearly benefited from coming to K-State. He went from a Big Ten program here, improved himself, and had an incredible season in whatever league that is, XFL.
And he was on the Jets roster this year, too.
Right. Then you have Will Howard transferring after a pretty good run at K-State, up and down, but you could clearly see he had improved. And now on a bigger stage with more weapons, he's proving what a great quarterback he is. And Avery Johnson has been in the national spotlight because of his promise and kind of his style. He's just an intriguing quarterback. K-State quarterbacks are kind of center stage in terms of a conversation. And if you're a quarterback recruit, then maybe that does influence you to say, that looks like a good place where I can thrive and succeed. I'm not sure.
And Fitz, too, Will Howard's diploma says Kansas State University. Like, I think sometimes people forget that, right? Like, he was here for 4 years. He graduated from this university. It's not like he was here for 3 years and then left and he's going to have Ohio State on his diploma. Like,
right.
People, let's not get it twisted. Will Howard is still a major prominent figure for Kansas State.
Right. His brother's here, so he's still invested in the program.
Yep, no doubt about it. Okay, next question from K-State Kyle. Is the proposed 10-day portal window a positive, negative, or neutral for K-State? Fitz, why don't you go ahead and give us some background on this? And what do you think?
There's a rule that is being proposed to move the portal window to 10 days in early January. I don't think this is going to pass. Can you imagine the utter chaos that that? You had 10 days to go into the portal and to get to your school because spring football is there. I don't see how this works. I know what we have now sucks, but at least it gives kids some time. People don't understand this about the portal window. That's just to go in. I mean, the portal window is closed right now unless you're a graduate student or your team
is 5 days removed from a bowl game, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, kids that are in the portal right now can still find destinations. They're not stuck in there. But this would be a little bit different because if you wanted to get somewhere for the spring, you got to go. The portal is open now, and you got to make that decision. I don't think this is good. I like Chris Kleiman's idea. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say it was his idea. That you move everything to June and you get rid of spring football and you have mini camps, basically. I like that a lot. It's part of a bigger picture of the reform of college athletics and the seasons that I'd like to see, and maybe I'll do a deep purple on that in the future. I don't think this will pass. If it does, Cole, have fun covering it.
What about the teams that are in the playoff?
Exactly.
I mean, can you imagine being in the quarterfinals or semifinals of the college football playoff and your backup quarterback or your starting outside linebacker comes up to you and is like, hey, I'm going to transfer.
Right.
Like, are you still going to have that allowance of teams, 5 days after a bowl game? Like,
got to, but still, I mean, if you want to go someplace for the spring, you're going to be late.
And then you're screwed. Then the team is screwed because they can't find somebody to replace you if you decide to transfer afterwards.
I don't know.
I like the idea, but I mean, I do think there needs to be some more reform on this, but I am not buying that this is going to pass. I was a little surprised this is what they, tried to push out there.
I don't know. I need to talk to some coaches and see what they think. I'm not buying on this one. I like the fact that they're trying to reform it, but I think this causes a new set of problems that you don't want to mess with.
We didn't answer the question before we move on. Is it a positive, negative, or neutral for K-State? Do we agree that it's a negative, or to answer that question fully?
I think it's a negative because back to culture that you talked about in the last podcast, you got to have that culture. And for K-State, we're not just taking a player based on film. We want to meet them. And
I
mean, you wouldn't even really have days to go visit. This doesn't make sense. This would lead to some really bad decisions by programs and players. And these are important decisions, particularly for the player. This isn't just about finding a new place to play. This is going to be home. And I mean, if you make a rash decision, there's a good chance you're going to regret that decision. And so I don't think this is in K-State's best interest. Because I think this will lean heavily into rewarding the kids who just want the money. I don't care where I'm going to play. Who's going to give me the most money? Okay, I'm going there.
Yeah.
This is a great advantage for them. And I don't think that's a good thing.
Agreed.
Okay, let's go on to 3G Wildcat. You know what, 3G, at least could you upgrade to 4G? I mean, we're in the 5G world now, and you're going to just keep falling behind. I don't know. Do you think we'll see more of let Avery be Avery offense next year? I love how he worded this question. Yes, but Cole, he's got to stay healthy.
That's right. And the offense is just going to look different. I mean, DJ Giddens is one of the best running backs in Kansas State history, but the offense was centered around him, and he was an NFL-style running back. I think Joe Jackson might have that potential to be an NFL-style running back, but Dylan Edwards is not a DJ Giddens where you can just hand him the ball and let him go for 25 carries a game downhill. Like DJ, he's going to get 6 yards. He's going to get 4 yards, and then he's going to get 27 yards, right? And that's why his yards per carry was so high. Dylan, he can get those 27 yards, right, on one run, but is he going to be able to consistently get those 4 and 5 yards after contact? don't know the answer to that question. But the reason K-State's offense was predicated for DJ Giddens was because he had that skill set. So naturally, you're going to see more two tight ends. You're going to see some more play action. You're going to see some more stand in the pocket because, getting a quarterback moving doesn't necessarily mesh with a downhill runner, right? Like, think about pro style. K-State had a very pro style offense this year.
Yep,
when
they
you
did.
really go back and look at it. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. Go watch the Washington Commanders, by the way, and they will debunk anything when you see pro style quarterback. Jaden Daniels is their leading rusher. If K-State wants to do anything, go and look and see how they use Jaden Daniels. That's a guy who won the Heisman Trophy, who leads his team in rushing and is still an excellent passer. I think K-State can really, really use Avery's skill set and to help the offense, but it's mostly because of the weapons around him are going to be a little bit more dynamic.
K-State's offense in the Rate Bowl against Rutgers was awesome, but that approach isn't going to work with every opponent. That was a big Big Ten defense, a sizable Big Ten defense that they thought they could beat with speed, and they did. They got away from it a little bit in the game and then got back to it, and it just all popped open because the speed was too much. I think that speed does create issues for any team you play. I liked what it does, but you also have to have the option of going power football at times. You need to run the clock sometimes, pick up first downs, and win a game that way. And I think that's why they brought in the transfer from Nebraska. If it's more of that, more of a fullback, more of a short yardage type of guy, maybe an end of game guy. But you can't wander too far away from basic fundamentals of football. But the reason we didn't see Avery be Avery as much is they were pretty committed to concealing the level of his injury until the bowl game rolled around. He was basically unable to be part of the offense in terms of planned quarterback runs for 4 games and into a 5th, which was most of the season after the Colorado game. So if they can keep him healthy, we'll see a lot more running. The other side of that is he just went through a year where he was more of a pocket passer than a runner. And while it was painful to watch at times, he got better at it. And he threw a horrific interception again in the bowl game, and he literally said afterwards that this is something I've got to work on. I looked right at the guy and still threw the ball, basically. And I can't make every throw. I got to get over that mentality because I've had that. I've always been able to make the throws, but now the guys are a lot better that are on the other team try to defend. So I thought that was very interesting that even he knows he's got to get better at some of those things, but well, I'm telling you what, you layer in his run game, Cole, this offense gets pretty nasty to stop. It gets pretty difficult, pretty layered to try to address all the pieces when you've got a Jace Brown out there and a Dylan Edwards and a Joe Jackson and anyone else that can, go full throttle, which I think is the way K-State needs to go. K-State can't match the size all the time of other teams, but you can amass speed and beat him that way, which Bill Snyder did to great effect in the early years of his time at Kansas State.
And part of it too, Fitz, before we move on to the last question here, is Kansas State showed that, like you mentioned, Avery Johnson was more kind of a pocket passer. Pocket passer. Thank you.
Fun. I got to use that as a breakout. That's awesome.
Yes, thank you. Pocket passer. If that's what teams think about Avery Johnson, feel free to think about that. Feel free to think that way about Avery Johnson. Go watch all the film, the last 5 games of the season, see how Avery wasn't running, and just prepare for that. And so if Iowa State does that, and Army does that, and who do they play? North Dakota? Something like that? If those 3 teams do that, is that right?
Yeah.
If those 3 teams do that, I'm going to feel very confident that K-State's offense is going to be just fine at the beginning of the season.
I would agree with you. Make sure you shut down Avery as a passer. Don't worry. He
doesn't run.
He doesn't run at all.
No,
I'm sure they're watching this to scout K-State.
Matt Campbell's too busy interviewing with the Bears to watch this.
The Bears.
Oh. All right. Last question here. Is anybody else on football's radar for transfer portal targets? That comes from Emawesome. Which
is a great name, by the way.
Yeah.
It's Emawesome. Emawesome is Emawesome. Yeah, I got confusing. Cole, this one's this one's yours. I don't think so.
No, I don't know. Like if somebody pops available that they like, sure, but I don't think they're going to add anybody until after the spring window. I would be very surprised if they add anybody else. I think they really enjoy who they have. They really have like who they got. I think Brandon Snee, the offensive lineman, was a ginormous get. The other offensive lineman we were tracking ultimately ended up committing to Charlotte. So like this was a pretty dire situation that Kansas State was in. Maybe in the springtime they try and go after another offensive lineman, but just to see how important and how good their ads have been. Fitz, did you happen to see this? Jonte Cook was on campus at Washington for 48 hours before he was kicked off. The former Texas receiver was on campus for 48 hours before they realized, we don't like you here. We've heard no stories of that being the case with Kansas State. They seem to really like all the guys that they've gotten. They've done their homework with them. But again, it goes back to that old NIL thing. You pay a guy a lot of money. Shout out to Washington for saying that you're not the guy we thought you were, and get the hell out of here.
That's good. That's awesome. Have you ever had a girlfriend for 48 hours and then you got cut?
No, but I would say probably another 3 days, and then I got cut out.
I had that happen in I think junior high. It still sticks with me. It hurts.
Yeah.
And that was so long ago that we hadn't invented sex yet. That's how old I am. We just shook hands and got anyhow. I want people to understand this. The portal and roster management has taken a big turn because now they're going into next year where they're going to have to be at 105. I don't know how K-State's going to do it. Are they going to do 105 scholarship? Are they going to stick with 85 and 20 walk-ons? I'm not sure. But the roster has to be 105, but not yet. So I don't know what their numbers will be in the spring, and they'll address that. If they're over 105, someone's got to go, and maybe that'll happen voluntarily, and maybe it won't. And maybe they'll realize, oh boy, we need a player at this position. We don't like our depth, and they'll chop someone. It just turned brutal. Welcome to the NIL, the portal, and now roster limitations, folks. This is getting more and more like professional football, and the players are going to eventually hate some of this. I mean, you're a student at Kansas State on football scholarship, and someone might tell you you're not a football player here anymore. And if you value school and relationships and friendships, that sucks. A lot of the kids now this is business, and will go off to a school totally out of here and just go play football. But this will change a lot. So I think K-State might address that in the portal. But also, I think another overarching story here that goes between football and basketball is you kind of want to keep that loyalty. You want to keep the kids that are bought into your program, that are forming that culture.
Yep.
And if you bring too many in through the portal, you got to reinvent your culture, and you're just caught in that vicious cycle. So I don't see them doing much, but they might. Everyone comes out of spring football and said, yeah, that position isn't what we thought it would be. Yeah, those guys haven't. I'm telling you, young guys, if you're in the program and you want to earn time, you better, between now and spring football, be busting ass. You better be Coach True's favorite person in the weight room. You better be doing everything right, because you don't get to stick around and lay in the hammock and earn your scholarship anymore. If you're not a doer, you're going to be a goner. And that's just the brutal nature of college athletics. That's where we've come. Sucks in some ways, but other ways it's kind of interesting.
It's better to be not scrambling right now than scrambling. And we've seen some programs that are still scrambling for some spots. Mm-hmm. Kansas State is not doing that. So you can rest your head easy as a K-State football fan, knowing that the people inside of Veneer have gotten pretty much everything they've wanted to on their wish list.
And also, I hope we come to the point where student athletes realize I've got a space here. I've got a scholarship here. I'm on scholarship, and they want me on their 105. Even if you're not seeing much time, unless you're prepared to go down, sometimes way down in the hierarchy of college football, just be real. You're not going to be a third stringer at Kansas State, hit the portal, and end up at Washington.
Yep.
You're not going to end up in the power conferences. You may not end up in the Sun Belt. We've seen players transfer from K-State and go to the MAC and not have success. If you have a seat at the table, even if it's at the far end of the table, you might want to think about not giving it up. It's not working out for a lot of kids in the portal. The portal has turned into a black hole for a lot of young athletes who went into the portal with hopes and dreams and now have no place to play football or continue their education on scholarship. That sucks. That's it for this edition of the Powercat Podcast. We'll keep doing this. I kind of like it, Cole.
I do too.
It. We get to a topic, we talk about it, we answer our questions, and then we get out of here. Just like this.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.